Welcome to Podlygamists, the Sister Wives Rewatch podcast.
We sit down each week and recap an episode of TLC's longest-running reality show, following the Browns, a Mormon polygamous family originating in Lehi, Utah.
I'm Samantha Kaiser.
And I'm Haley Graff.
And this is Podlygamists, Season 2, Episode 2.
Season 2, Episode 2, Free Range Browns.
Mm-hmm.
It was a treat.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this season's really been over-delivering, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like it's twice as good as the first season, so they've really stepped up their game on content.
Yeah, it was good. It was such a departure, too, from the last episode. This is them, like, really out of their element. The whole thing takes place almost all in Wyoming. You know, it's just, away from they said it was to get away from all the troubles at home, and like it took me away from the troubles at home. Like it was such a
I know, we took a real journey with them to the ranch in Wyoming. So
yeah. I mean, do we just get into it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like they're dealing with the aftermath of going public, like with all the freaky paparazzi and shit outside the windows and the police investigating them. So as Kody says, they're going to take off and go to the ranch and play cowboys.
Just kidding. I don't know how good that sound effect came across on my mic, but
I love it.
It was funny. I think the shock factor was funny.
I was like, what is happening?
It made me giggle.
I love it.
We're gonna get back to the dirt, back to the ranch, and play cowboys. Always good for a one-liner, Kody is.
I know, right?
That they should have just done that. Instead, the TLC provided us the Browns get away for a vacation to Kody's parents' ranch in Wyoming. Back to the simple explanation. Yeah, nothing really, not a lot of flair in that description, but
yeah, they should have had Kody write that one.
He made up for it,
right?
So there's a lot. We jump a lot back and forth between like background on Kody, current what's going on, you know, their journey to Wyoming, their journey to pack for Wyoming was its own sequence of events. Like
in subsequent seasons, anytime they go anywhere, it is an ordeal.
I mean, to put it lightly, they have 20 people, essentially 20 plus people to get out the door.
I feel like I just dread every time you're like, we're going somewhere. I'd be like, shit, this is gonna suck. Like,
especially when you're rocking a late 90s Suburban that apparently leaks fluids like a sieve. Like, they just
good start. Good omen for the rest of the trip.
It was tough. I mean, they're like, so, I mean, I guess basically they explained to us they're hitting the road going to the ranch in Wyoming to get away from their troubles. They explain kind of that the kids, so Logan and Hunter actually go there like every summer and kind of help out on the ranch, get like, I don't know, some man time. It seems like they kind of like looking at Logan riding that horse. He was so just like feeling himself and, you know, looked like a real.
He looked like he knew what he was doing, like real comfortable doing it. Like,
so they take the whole family and descend upon this ranch for, I don't know, couldn't have been long. It didn't seem like it was a long trip.
I feel like it was like 3-4 days, maybe.
After like 3 days of driving. Yeah. Like, and
just
then they go back.
Utah to Wyoming does take several days for them.
I mean, the funny thing is, so Christine, Mary, and Robin and the majority of the kids leave, you know, early to get up there. They know it's going to take a while. They say Logan's kind of our like voice of reason in all of this. It's funny to see him because he's so not present in the later seasons. He's an adult, obviously, like he's not, but he's so like the narrator of the show at this phase.
Yes.
It's so funny to get his like teen adult take on things where he's just like, yeah, it's just, you know, it's gonna take 8 hours, but the potty breaks and the boat, like he's just like such a little man. I mean, they rely on him a lot, like credit to him and like feeling for him in that way. But it is funny because it's such a teen imitating an adult that he's doing, you know, and he is mature and smart. I'm not saying he's not, but he's just so like he's like holding Kody's posture and just the mannerisms and all the things. It's just Logan's our the unofficial narrator of the early seasons. It seems like
I love it.
they also allude to all these cousins they have at the ranch. I mean, they say the kids love to play with all their cousins at the ranch. Didn't see any of the cousins. Well, we saw one cousin briefly, I think, but
Samuel.
what was that?
I think his name was Samuel.
Yeah, like right when they arrive.
Yeah.
But didn't see a lot of cousins. I guess we kind of well maybe talk about that as we're barely into the episode, but
Right.
there's some like probably privacy stuff going on.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice before they even hit the road and they're kind of just chaos in the house as everyone's packing and Mary has a mountain of bags for this trip. I'm just like blown away.
To
We
go
do,
to a ranch in Wyoming.
yeah, for effectively like 3 days. It seems like.
Yeah, it's not like you're hitting up the town or something that you need outfit changes during the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was a joke or if that was legitimate, but
I
it couldn't have
couldn't
been
tell.
more. Even if it was her and Mariah's stuff, it was still a ton of stuff.
Yeah, you're like, all right, not light
Um,
packers to take, and they took Cody's little sports car too. So I'm like, did you
mhm.
fit all that in the trunk?
The back seat was just luggage. Yeah, I
Right,
don't know.
Mariah just crouched in the corner with the luggage.
Um, they do cut to this is like removed from all the plot. We cut to a point where I think it's Savannah or one of the little girls pushing around Truly like in a box,
Yeah.
and she just looks like a living baby doll. Like not only does she have that shiny bald head, and she's just very like cute and cherub like,
Hmm.
but she's just like being tossed around like a rag doll. And that's how you could tell she's like their baby doll.
I
It was
honestly,
cute.
seriously, every time I see Truly, I just love it.
Yeah,
I just
it's
get such a kick out of her in general. Like, I think she's just so entertaining as a now child. So just
mhm.
seeing her as a baby, it just brings me joy.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit towards the end of our workday about Christine's recent birthday party where they all Janelle's girl, her one daughter Savannah, and all Christine's kids girls got together for like a Great Gatsby kind of murder mystery birthday, and they all of course dressed up because it's Christine, and and Truly's like the little mobster with a big fat cigar. She's like again 12 now, and she's wearing like this zoot suit, like a pinstripe zoot suit, and a big old fat cigar just like out of her mouth. It's just the funny. If you're on Instagram and you need a good Christine posted it. It was the funniest thing, or Janelle
I
posted one
love
of the
it
two.
so much.
It was the funniest thing, and aside the fact that it's adorable, and like I love that they're all together, and
They're still maintaining their relationship and stuff, but
yeah,
I mean, Truly wins that
she
costume.
really stole the show from
Yeah,
the pictures that I saw.
immediately your eye goes to you're like, oh my god, Truly, so funny and cute.
um they kind of talk about how the weight they feel as adults they try to keep it off their kids, but then there's a little bit of like a debate, like, but they know it, the kids ask them at school, like they read things, they have the internet, like they're aware of what's going on, they try not to feel the pressure that the adults feel, but they're definitely like not oblivious to the fact that there's a lot going on at home right now with the recent going public
Right.
scenario.
And like, yeah, Robin was saying too, she's like, that they can sense that we're stressed, like, and anytime you're around somebody who's really stressed, like I at least, I mean, I take on
Hmm.
that feeling too, like you just kind of absorb that energy, and so then you get kind of agitated and stuff too, and even if you don't really understand why, that's almost more frustrating when you don't understand why. So
Hmm.
for the little kids to have to like deal with random emotions like that, and just it's a
Yeah,
lot of it.
definitely. So to relieve their stress, they pack up to 18 people. They pack up 16 children in a car, into a couple of cars, and make an 8-hour journey. That's really going to take upwards. They estimate before they leave with Logan's like wry like commentary, it's going to take more like 12 hours for the potty breaks. But then of course Robin's ancient looking Suburban breaks down on the side of the road.
I literally wrote, I was like, of course they have car problems,
Yeah, they couldn't not.
right?
Um and they're stuck on the road for 3 hours. Can you imagine that many kids on the side of the highway at night for 3 hours?
As someone who I have had my share of car problems, like for the longest time, I drove a Nissan Sentra from the moment I got it, that thing was a lemon. It was breaking down all the time. I mean, every other week it was freaking breaking down on me. So it's very, I'm very used to it. I've broken down on the interstate at like midnight before. Never though have I waited 3 hours to either get someone to come pick me up or get some kind of help in some way. Like 3 hours is, I can't even imagine. Like, what were they doing for that time?
I can't imagine. And the kicker is they were 1 hour from home.
It really made it super far.
They made it 1 hour, and then they were stuck on the road for 3 hours, and they had to they're on the phone like having someone pick up fluids, I guess.
They're like, I think we might have ran out of oil. And I was like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, did you not check to make sure that you had oil before you're taking at least an 8-hour drive? Obviously more.
In an old vehicle. And sorry, but do you run out of oil, or does it just get like so gunked up and shitty that it like, unless there's a leak of some
You
kind?
can actually run out of
Okay.
oil.
Okay. I guess I just have never gotten to that point.
I don't think it's like that common that you run out of oil because you usually get it changed intermittently. So I mean, obviously, if you're low on oil, they'll put more in and change it out.
Okay.
But clearly, they weren't even doing that. So.
Well, they make it sound like they're pouring fluids in and it's just falling through, right? Because there was radiator fluid too involved that they. And Logan gives a quick diagnosis, but like, I'm not confident that he knew what he was talking about. He maybe did.
I mean, when the radiator goes out, like there is lots of smoke and shit, I think. But I don't know that was the issue per se. And then obviously Kody takes it in the next day and gets a pretty big price tag for what it would cost to fix it.
Yeah, shout out to Rogers Automotive and Reed at the desk. They did shout them out and give them like a little byline on the screen to make sure we knew that like the Browns trust their shitty car with Rogers Automotive. So if you're looking for,
so if you're in, the Lehigh area
in 2011, maybe still to this day, I'm not sure.
I'm gonna do a quick Google, to be honest. I just want to know.
That's a good call. I was actually I was looking at the value of their
Were you
Suburban
really?
because they get a repair estimate of $5,163.69. And I'm thinking, looking at that car, you didn't get a great look at it. I estimated it like late 90s
Yeah.
ish because it was squared off. The way it looked older than a 2000s
Yeah.
era vehicle. I'm like, that car's maybe worth 10 grand. Like, I was just trying to figure out, and I'm sure it's got high miles if it's their family like bus they take around basically.
Right.
So I can't find a value on that vehicle, unfortunately. But
if anyone is interested, though, Rogers Automotive is still in business.
Ask for Reed. Yeah, so they get that valuation back, or the cost estimate back, and it's a gut punch, it seems like. Yeah, I was not off to a great start. Turns out the trip takes about 3 days.
An 8-hour drive turned into a 24-hour one.
In fact, they stay at a hotel because it's taking so long. And Janelle and Kody, who left the following day, arrive around the same time they do.
Yeah, I think just like an hour after. Like,
yep, I think that's what they said. Which that means even they must have been taking their time, because if it's an 8-hour drive, it shouldn't have taken them 2 days to get. They must have taken their sweet time, but still managed to pretty much meet them as they arrived.
That was pretty nuts.
They had to make sure to stop at Red Canyon for a photo op.
Robin was a little upset because she didn't understand why they were stopping.
I think she panicked a little bit, like, what now? What could it be now? Like, no, we're just taking a picture.
Oh, thank God. Okay, just a picture, not another crisis.
Meanwhile, the screen's like 6 hours to go, still on this trip, meaning they've made it 2 hours.
2 hours.
after with the 3-hour intermission.
Some people have commutes of 2 hours. But that's not like it's not like a crazy long distance, and they've only made it that far.
I think they only stopped because Janelle was not in that car, because me in that situation, I'm transferring that to Janelle's thought process. I would say we are not stopping for a picture.
Again, we've already had enough delay.
Like we already have 1,000 potty breaks ahead of us. Sorry, Red Rocks or what's it called? Red Canyon is going to have to wait till the way back, I guess. Like, I would just be.
You would think it would, because I'm like, the point was for you to get there to spend time with the family. And they're like,
Photo op.
right.
Okay. They kind of transition into, oh, sorry, cut back to my immediately when they kept showing like the timestamp of like how long they had lived on this journey. All I was thinking was the SpongeBob, like 3 hours later, like
That little transition.
like the slide that comes in and several hours later. That was a bad impression, but you get the
That
idea.
was exactly it.
Um. Anyways, they then kind of my next kind of thing cuts to the background on Kody and his family. Is that kind of what you had?
Yep, that's what I've got next.
Kody, so he grew up Mormon but not polygamist.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, so like, I guess, his parents were the first ones then to turn polygamous before he did, which I don't know why, but I kind of thought they did it after him for some reason. I don't know why
Mm-hmm.
I thought that, but he said while Kody, he himself was on a mission for the Mormon church, because I mean, he was Mormon, but just not fundamentalist Mormon. His parents decided that they were going to adopt a polygamist faith. And his mom was the driving factor in this,
And
which,
he kind of says she was always a believer in the principle, like she taught him about it.
yeah.
I don't know. I just like how and why. I just like yes, obviously we're still asking the eternal question of why polygamy is the principle of fundamentalist Mormonism. But that aside, like what made Grandma Janelle so like driven towards polygamy? It was just it's in that she's teaching her son who like I'm assuming she's hoping will someday take on the principle.
Yeah, and
Like she's like the big vanguard of it.
yeah, because I mean, he was saying, he was like, women are kind of overwhelmingly the driving force in choosing polygamy. And I was like, I don't know, I have a hard time believing that, sir, but okay. And
Yeah.
then Mary chimes in being like, well, my mom also really wanted it, and she was telling my dad, like, I'm gonna move, to a different state and do polygamy. Are you coming or not? Because I'll go without you. Like, it was that strong of a calling to it or whatever. And I was just like, what the what? Like, I'm sorry, I still don't get it. Like,
It really makes a lot of sense why then they chose it
yeah,
because it was so like aspired to in their families growing up. It almost seems like Cody's mom spoke so highly of it. Grandma, gosh, I can't think of her name. Grandma Bonnie. I
yeah,
can't picture her being like, you know, get in or get out of the way. Like we're going to polygamy town. Like you know what I mean? It's so strange.
yeah.
And then Mary's very proud of that. She's like, mm-hmm. Like she said, either we're doing this or I'm out of here. Like whatever.
Doing it with or without you. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
nuts to me.
And I did, because they did kind of try to allude to so I guess benefit of the doubt, I'm saying like they have such a different culture of polygamy than like the historical context that we learned about
Hmm.
in Under the Banner.
Hmm.
Um, because it's very like women empowering and women driven. Because I was gonna say, I wrote down when they're trying to make the case of it's very often it's the women who are pushing this. I said, not Emma, not
Not a
Emma
fan.
Smith.
Yeah, Emma Smith, Emma Hale is her maiden name. Not a fan.
Yeah, she wasn't a proponent. She actually fought it.
Time and time again.
Very much opposed. So I almost because I kind of I guess I was taking notes or I wasn't like fully listening. The first time I heard that and I had to rewind, I was like, "Are they saying that women push this from the start?" Because I could tell
I
you
was
that
like,
does
I
not.
beg to differ, sir.
Yeah, it was. That's not what they were saying. They said that in a lot of families, it's common that the women are the first wife is the driving force into polygamy. So maybe in their circle that's the case. I don't know,
I
but I
just
can.
I so this I mean, I don't want this to like sound insensitive, but I'm like, the women who are then the first wife who are like, we should add in another, I'm like, are you like truly happy in your marriage relationship to be like, let's add another like in the mix, And I'm trying to like that's maybe sort of judgmental, and I'm not trying to exactly be
Mhm.
that way, but I can't help but think that. Because I'm like, why would, if you're like super happy in your relationship, in your marriage, why would you be like, now's a good time to add in something else here. Let's mix things up and change it, you know?
Yeah, that's the that's the it's I don't want to say it's like chicken or the egg or something, but it's like in a perfect world, if they're very altruistic, they could say, "You're a great husband. We're doing great. Let's multiply, not divide this like thing we have going." You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's like the marriage or like the moral like thing. I think that's kind of like Kody in there. I think they believe it's like making you a better person. It's you're prospering because you've been doing marriage so well. Do it more. Do it with more people.
But
But
I have to ask then, what if you're a great wife? Should you not have multiple husbands
oh
to
yeah, I
share that
mean,
with? You know what I mean? Like,
we've tried to ask that question and it
I
doesn't
know,
go over. So
I know, but like I can't not think it.
I know. I know. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. That's not even like yeah, like logically yes, but we're already departed from that like one for one kind of mentality in this scenario. So it's like that's assuming you're a great like if that's your real motivation, like we're doing this great. I am so in love with this person. This person takes great care of me. Let's bring on more. That's like giving human beings a lot of credit and a lot of like I just don't think that many people are that altruistic to say I'm so generous with my marriage that's going so great that I want to like invite another person to share it with me, to share my husband with. Like, you know what I do? Does that make sense? I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm like articulating it well. Like, I don't believe that's the motivation for most women, is what I'm saying. Maybe like 1 out of 100 is
Well,
genuine.
I mean, and like I wrote down later, we'll get into it further with Kody's family, but I wrote down, I was like, what the fuck is this martyrdom like of
Mm,
being like, this makes me jealous and upset, and it lowers my self-esteem, and I
mm-hmm,
feel not good enough, and all these things that are really, I'm like, but you're actively wanting this. I'm like, what is this? Like, are you a masochist? I don't understand.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a hair shirt. That's a good way. That's like a good like phrase to put like the martyrdom
Yeah.
to put on it. It's so antiquated. Like it's just like suffer for to gain altruism or suffering to gain like points or whatever. It's like and there is a was it the last episode I think it was during his interview he calls it an accelerated personal development or something like
Yeah.
it's like a speed what I'm like picturing that's like a speed run through like growing and learning and changing and shaving off your they say there's a time they call it shaving off all your rough edges like it's like
Mhm.
putting you through the rock tumbler
Yeah.
at like twice the speed. Like that's kind of the visual I get out of that. And I just like maybe in some I'm not saying for everybody like that it doesn't work that way,
Hmm.
but I just don't believe that many like 20 something year olds because they get married young. So the
Yeah.
first wife's probably 25 if on the older side,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't believe that many like early 20s folks have the self-awareness, the altruism, the selflessness to really genuinely have that be the motivation. I feel like it has to usually be an attempt at earning affection, saving something, trying to like seem like that great altruist, like a saint. You have to be a saint for that to be like true. I just don't trust it. Like, I just don't. And maybe one I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and like cynical about it, I guess. And I think but you see that none of the Brown kids want to be polygamists so that we know of so far.
Hmm.
There's a great I mean, out of 18 kids, none of them yet.
And they've seen it up close and personal. They
Mhm.
lived that life, and none of them are like, yeah, I want this for me myself.
Right.
I feel like that speaks volumes.
Everyone other than well, I guess Robin grew up in the principal as well, right? I
Yeah.
think. And Christine. But
Yeah.
um it was later for Mary's mom and then Janelle's mom much later.
Mhm.
And they aspired to it so much that like maybe that's was what made it so easy and like desirable for them. But then, like, on the flip side of the next generation that's seen it their whole lives, they're like, no thanks. You know, we've spent so much time on this now, but it's just
I
like
know, but
it's such a.
because it's
I'm just trying to
so
like make it make sense. Still, obviously,
yeah. And I mean,
yeah,
we'll talk about it this entire podcast. I think. I
yeah,
think we'll never really get it. We'll continue to have this conversation in
yeah.
various iterations. I think the entire time.
Yeah. So hopefully the listener also is just wants to keep rehashing this conversation because that's the eternal
I
question.
think that's part of the draw of watching
Yeah.
Sister Wives because like you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to make it
Hmm.
make sense.
And you just get closer and further and closer and further. It's just like the same like kind of pattern.
Yeah.
But okay, I think the next thing we do is land in Wyoming when we kind of meet the fam, right?
Right.
We meet one cousin who looks Logan makes a joke about how they share brown genes or they look alike, and they do. He looks like he could be one of the kids of the family of the Browns,
Yeah.
of like our Browns, you know.
Right.
I said Grandpa Win is adorable. He's a little old cowboy and he's just like hustling around being grandpa
Hover
and he's
around.
very cute. Yeah. um
He said a cute thing, like all the kids are kind of like in turn running up to hug him and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, I guess they still love their grandpa." And I was like,
yeah.
"Of course they
Just
do."
such a grandpa comment, you
Like,
know. Oh, your old grandpa.
great.
You know, that's kind of like that's I don't know, my grandpa. Gave your grandpa a hugger, which modern day sounds different than it did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, but he's all give your old grandpa a hugger and give me a
Yeah.
hug. That's my grandpa Art.
Cute.
Shout out Grandpa Art, who never has heard of podcasting, I'm sure.
Aw.
93.
Aw.
Um, oh, they talk about how the parents were nervous about this trip. I first wrote down Janelle was nervous about the trip because I misheard it. Because Kody's mom's name is Janelle, I think. They all have accents and kind of say it a little differently, but I think it's pronounced Janelle. But I
Yeah.
misheard that because I didn't realize that was her name, and so I thought, oh, Janelle's nervous about the trip. Our Janelle. No. Kody's mom. And I'm sure all of them too.
Right.
And they said, quote, it's like outing mom and dad, which, call me like naive, didn't occur to me when they said they were doing this trip. I wasn't like thinking twice that they're like also exposing their family to like being public along with them.
Right.
So for older folks who have lived in the kind of fear for much longer, I'm sure,
Yeah.
or seen a lot of like prosecution, I guess persecution.
Well, they've just lived through, like, historically, they've
Yes,
lived through times that are less accepting of anybody who's
yes,
different, like, yeah, racism. I mean, obviously, racism is still an
yeah.
issue today. We know,
Hmm.
but I mean, living through like the '60s and stuff, where it was very largely an issue. Living through, like, gay
They've
people don't
seen the
have.
result of like lack of acceptance
Hmm.
more intimately than
And
yeah.
so understanding, I think maybe more so than like we talked about last week, where they were talking about like tolerance and stuff, and how it was more accepted in schools and more taught in schools to be tolerant at the very least of people. Yeah, they didn't historically have that probably in their youth.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So I guess that whole conversation kind of like opened my eyes a bit to like their concerns. And before we started recording, you and I kind of had conversations about like there could be more wives in this family that just weren't shown. In when we're married to Grandpa Win. We know of Grandma Cheryl and Grandma Janelle because those are the parents of our, the Brown family, Janelle and Kody, which we'll get to.
yeah.
But
Well, maybe we should introduce Grandma Cheryl then and Grandma Janelle, and then we can.
yeah. Okay. So Grandma Cheryl is Janelle's mom. I think we even mentioned her last week because she took care of the kids when they went to New York, and she has passed away now. And I see so much of Janelle in her, and she's a very cute
Oh,
little
her
lady.
mannerisms! I was like, you can tell that's Janelle's mom.
Even her cadence and the way she
Yep.
speaks and stuff like that. I was like, it was adorable. You
Yeah.
can also see a lot of Kody and Grandma Janelle because Grandma Janelle is Cody's mother,
Right.
along with Grandpa Win, obviously. Um, so yes, to the listener, Janelle's mom and Cody's mom are sister wives, but they're
Yeah.
not blood relative. Just to clear, in case that's not clear, they married later. They're not blood relatives, but it is still interesting, to say the least.
It's very interesting.
And they kind of bury the lead on that whole. We go a while. Because we know you and I knew that already. So I'm
Mhm.
like waiting for them to say, and funny story.
Right.
Grandma Cheryl's also Janelle's mom, and they're married to the same
They
guy.
arrive at the ranch, and they're like, here's Cody's dad, Win. His name's Win. And here's Cody's mom, Janelle. And then all of a sudden they're like, and here's Grandma Cheryl, Janelle's mom. And then they just kind of like, for the longest time, don't address why the hell Grandma Cheryl's there. And
You're
like, if you didn't know, like, because we've
just
obviously
waiting.
watched
Yeah.
before, I was like, when are they going to say that Cheryl is there because she's married to Cody's dad? Like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason she's there, so that she didn't just make a trip or something.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. I wonder if they weren't sure about revealing that information
Hmm.
right away, because they don't. You would think, say, and how funny. Like I said, yeah, and here's grandma because she's also married to grandpa. Like, haha, funny. But it's like way later in a different setting that they finally, like, Janelle and grandma and grandpa are like, yeah, when I met Kody, I brought my mom to meet the family, and she really liked and she really liked Win, Kody, my father-in-law, my future father-in-law, Win, Cody's dad. She really liked him, and they fell in love, and got married before Kody and Janelle did.
I feel like the nerve.
Yeah.
You're
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm introducing you to my fiance's dad, and you're like, I'll just marry him first. It's fine.
Yeah, like they're already engaged, and they're like, let's cut them off at 3 months, like 3 months too, by the way. Yeah, I thought that I'm like, dang, that was kind of shady, Grandma Cheryl. Like,
Yeah.
steal your daughter's thunder. I guess it was Janelle's second marriage, but it had to be at least Grandma Cheryl's second marriage as well.
Oh, I've looked it up. It's Grandma Cheryl's third marriage.
Ooh,
Because I wanted to know, because I was like,
yeah,
what? I mean, she had to have been single, obviously, when meeting Cody's dad.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Well, basically, so Janelle says, most of her family, like, kind of disowned her when she decided to become a polygamist. And she goes, but her mom was the exception. So she brought her mom along to meet, Cody's family and stuff. And that's when she met Cody's dad, and then just, I guess, immediately fell in love with him and married him, even though she
Mhm.
wasn't a polygamist or anything herself. She was just a regular Mormon, not a fundamentalist Mormon. But Cody's dad changed that for her real quick. So, but basically, I looked it up, and Grandma Cheryl, so she was married to Janelle's dad, and then he passed away like in the 70s.
Mm,
I don't know how, or, but
mhm,
he probably passed away fairly young, I guess. But then she married another guy, got divorced from him,
mm.
and then ended up marrying Cody's dad.
Okay. I was wondering. I had that written down. Didn't bother to research it, but I was wondering, like, so what happened to Janelle's dad in this equation?
I went in a rabbit hole on Google today because I
Okay.
was just like, what is this? Like, I need to know the whole story
Yeah.
with this.
Now that you mention, I do feel like Janelle mentioning her dad dying when she was pretty young. I feel like that comes up later, like how that affected them.
Yeah.
But that is interesting. And the fact that she just like pretty much instantly fell in love with Win,
And wasn't
and then
even a polygamist. I mean, like,
it wasn't a polygamist. She changed her whole. But Janelle's already starting that trend. So I just want to know these people's personality types better, because like how, you know, not to use the C word again in this show. I try not to, but I always do. It's cultish. It's like, mom, come see this life I'm joining. Mom joins the life, marries the same. It's like marries the lineage. Like you could draw those same kind of like weird. It's just bizarre. But I want to know that. I want to know all the details of that those circumstances. And again, when they finally get to the point of telling us that whole deal, it's not when they first greet everybody in the driveway. It's later. They're just kind of standing off to the side. And Janelle's kind of whole deal is like, there's nothing funny going on here. Yeah, my mom is married to Cody's dad. And, it's actually great because the kids get both their grandparents out of the way, blah, blah, blah. Like, she just was like, very like, yeah, yep, that's correct. That's my mom. That's Cody's dad. Moving on. Like, she's very like,
nothing to see here. Moving on.
yeah, there's nothing funny going on. It was, I was kind of trying to tell you, because we were chatting about this earlier.
Mm.
Um, it just seemed like it was like she was finally like, no, we have to tell them. People are going to find out. So, yep, that's the story. You know what I mean? That's kind of the
Yeah.
vibe I got. Because
Yeah.
I
No,
felt like we waited forever to get that confirmation,
yeah,
you know,
it
watching the episode.
it made me really I mean, like, I have more questions now than I did before. I
No.
just I wanna know what the heck?
It left me and you with more questions than answers.
Which I guess is polygamy in general. I have more questions
Yeah,
than answers, so that seems par for the course, but
it's fair. So I mean, that being said, we talk about they're being nervous. They said they had friends, the parents of Grandpa Win, Grandma Cheryl, Grandma Janelle had reservations about having the family come out with the camera crew because they were then also effectively coming out to the world as polygamists. They had friends telling them don't do it. That with that context in mind, and this whole kind of like sidestepping around the relationship between Janelle and Kody and or not Janelle and Kody, but Grandpa Win and Janelle's mom and that whole thing. It's I hesitate to blow up names and like just give specific information that we've like kind of done a little bit of a deep dive on, but it seems like there might like it seemed like the way they never really said how many wives does Win have. When did he become a polygamist? Kody says he became a polygamist when he was on his missions.
right.
Well, Kody himself was on his missions is when his dad adopted polygamy. Kody would have been probably just out of high school at that point, I think. So he wouldn't have been yet married, or at least not married to Janelle yet. So
Yeah.
I think so. There's a possibility that there's another wife in the picture, if not more. Like we don't really know, but it seemed like there were some people who were just not shown, chose not to be revealed, that kind of stuff potentially. But also like fair because again, they are basically outing their parents, and the parents were hesitant. So it would make sense that this third party, fourth party, I guess,
Yeah.
who's not actually a parent of one of the who's not really directly connected to them besides being just like another grandma kinda decided not to be part of filming and reveal her identity. So potentially that as well being a factor, and the fact that all these cousins that we supposedly have around aren't like barely showing up besides like in the beginning when we meet I think Samuel, you said his name was.
Which, yeah, I mean, that makes sense then, like,
Yeah.
if they are also children of polygamists, I don't
Hmm.
know, but, I mean, they probably then weren't wanting to be too open if their parents
Yeah.
were like, because I mean, we see Cody's brother-in-law and stuff here, and we don't see his sister. I don't know what her do I mean, if she's
Yeah.
part of a polygamous family or anything, I don't know, but
Yeah, Uncle Tim. We get to know Uncle Tim a little bit.
Mhm.
He's a big guy. He's humongous. Like I can't believe how the stature of this person, but he's also a real uncle type, just like a real
Mhm.
clown. Kind of hanging out with the family, helping them on this cattle drive. I think it's funny that they are saying like the kids are here to help on this cattle drive. I'm like, are these kids helping on this cattle drive, or are they kind of hindering this cattle drive? Because I
I
can't imagine what
mean
like Savannah and Isabel and these kids are really doing to help the cattle drive.
like, Logan and Hunter are helping, and maybe Maddie, and, she seemed okay riding, like, she seemed like she did pretty well, but, like, the little kids, they're doing a cattle drive, moving them from one pasture to another, and Uncle Tim wants to keep the cows really calm and
Oh,
stuff and not stress them out because they have to move them so then they can vaccinate all the cattle and everything, and I was impressed with the kids, like, their riding
yeah,
ability and stuff, like, they seemed like they were pretty comfortable on horseback, and but, yeah, I mean, like, they kind of have the whole family started joining in, and I was like, "What's, like, Brianna doing out there?" Like, just riding a horse, like, I
they
mean,
just
they're
like
not.
ponies. Yeah, yeah. That's kind of like even Robin, because Dayton is the oldest of Robin's kids, and he was not riding a horse. It was just Aurora and Brianna, who was a baby. Brianna's a baby, like driving these cattles, and like she's just riding a horse in the back. But okay, it was
And
cute.
I mean, it was just funny because they have, like, the entire family kinda converges on this whole cattle drive to help out, and, like,
Yeah.
some of them are on horseback, some of them are walking, and I just, like, was laughing at Janelle just kinda, like, walking and sorta just like, "Go on,
Yep.
go on, cattle."
It was a cute like little family thing, and it looked awesome. Like that, what a fun experience that would be to have. I have a friend who actually got to do like a cattle drive for real side note, but like I have a friend who did footage for like hunting programs, like TV shows and stuff like that. So he got to do a lot of these kind of cool experiences. He found himself on a dude ranch that just like wanted to film it for their own purposes, I guess. And so my friend got to go along. This is her fiance, and do that. And it just sounds like the coolest experience to like ride a horse through these rocky terrain, guide the cows to their pen or whatever. It just seems very like a unique experience to be able to have. And it's cool that the boys, the two older boys, get to do that every summer.
Yeah, and that they're actually like getting quite good at it. And
Like they are now, like know what they're doing and at least look like they know what they're doing. And Hunter's like pretty young, I think, because Logan, there's kids in between Hunter and Logan. They're all girls, right? But like
Mhm.
he can't be more than 14.
14, yeah.
Yeah, it was just cool. And then they also are there to help Grandma Cheryl paint her. Is it Grandma Cheryl's house?
Yeah, Grandma Janelle's house.
Grandma
Needs
Janelle's house,
painting.
which is looking ragged when they show it originally. I was like, that house does need paint. This isn't just for show. Like they knew they needed to paint this house.
So they all take to that.
And there you cut to little Isabel with paint just down her arms and across her face. And she's like, it fell. And I'm like, I feel like you were playing in the paint, little Isabel, but okay. I just can't imagine this is an efficient way to paint this house.
Well, Christine's going like, "You're all full of paint," and she just was like, "I know."
It was cute.
Yep.
She's cute. She's such a cute little girl. But yeah, like I wrote down too, I'm like 16 kids and 4 adults in the efficient way to paint this house, or would 4 adults maybe have done it faster? Like it was
Yeah.
just like the kids with these paintbrushes like running over, chasing
I
each
know.
other. And I was just like, this seems like maybe it took longer because you had
You had
children
so
to
many helpers in
yeah.
quote.
I guess it kept them busy, but
They
it
even
was
get paint on the dog, you see. I'm like, yeah, you guys weren't
cut to like that border collie with like a handprint on his head or her head. It was like
right.
poor thing.
I know. And go rinse that dog off later.
They do a little interview confessional style with Janelle and Cheryl on the couch, which I thought
Hmm.
was they were just so cute.
They
Kind
do
of telling
seem really close,
they
Janelle and
do.
Carol. And like they say that they weren't that way to begin with. Like Janelle was super jealous of Cheryl joining the family.
It's I don't know what I guess I don't know what the I wrote this down because it just felt like interesting to me. But she just talks about how Janelle expressed how difficult it was when Grandma Cheryl came along because she was so beautiful and educated and she was just vibrant. And I took care of the kids and she took care of Win. And I just thought, that's like sounds like the tales all this time with adding wives. Like that feels like Robin, a
Yep.
way you would maybe I don't know if she's educated per se, but she's beautiful, she's young, and she's like Cody's favored person at that time.
Hmm.
Um, so that was just it seemed interesting, but also the fact that she's able to say that, I believe that she is evolved and they are best friends because that's so complimentary that I don't know that like if she really had beef with Cheryl that she would be willing to be like she's just so beautiful and educated and vibrant. Like it's just that seems like a real like girlfriend, like not girlfriend like romantically, but like friend,
Yeah.
like props to like look at her. She's the cool look. She's hot shit. Look at this. She's so smart. She's gorgeous. Like it just seems like such a friend like thing to do.
What I
And,
wrote watching the two of them, I was like, they seem like kind of like the Golden Girls. Like,
mhm.
because they, I was like, Janelle and or Janelle and Cheryl, Golden Girls, because they are like they do seem genuinely friends and stuff, and like it does seem nice for them to kind of have like another person around to help while like Win is kind of aging, his body's this
Mhm.
like his body's kind of breaking down and stuff from so many years of hard work, and so it is nice to have somebody else there to help ease that burden a little bit of watching your spouse age and age quicker than you maybe are. And I'm like, but I think it then is a little bit easier though to want or adjust to being sister wives when you're older and maybe like romance and like physical intimacy aren't as prominent in your relationship as they
Yeah.
once were.
I also thought, and that's when I kind of thought like that's the light at the end of the tunnel for these guys, like for our Brown family ladies, because like currently Cody's still quite a young guy, like, and especially he has a very young energy and like all that.
Yeah.
So like it's not gonna be soon where that this is their like happily ever after kind of thing. But I think it is. Like I think when Cody's aging and um not as active and just kind of like maybe turns into the like a lot of old men turn to a grumpy old man who just wants to sit on the couch and watch baseball. Like, that's a
Yeah.
very like I have had grandparents in my life like that or known people, you know what I mean? And then when that phase hits, they're just like girlfriends who live on this ranch together. Like,
Yeah.
again, when I use the word just to be abundantly clear, I don't mean like romantically. I mean like gal pals who live on this ranch together and they cook together and they have, their little jokes. And when they're on the couch together and there's some joke at some point where they're just like laughing.
They
Like,
lean into each other.
yeah, it was adorable. And it was like they are best friends. And especially when you live on a ranch in Wyoming and you're elderly, great. It's like your little retirement home with your best friend. Like
Yeah.
I see that the merit in that. I wouldn't say that that's worth like the many years of like struggle and pain that they're going through
Right.
before that.
Mhm.
But that I could see why maybe Janelle sees that and says this is my retirement plan. Like this is why I'm in it because she's so practical that way.
Eyes on the prize there.
Yes. Right. And like their perspective is so like wise and it's kind of those similar taglines that they use that when they talk to the sister our Brown family sister wives from the show, they say why are they doing this, what are the benefits, blah blah blah. Like many times that question is asked. And I think they get those mantras from these like elderly people in these equations who have all this like rosy retrospection and like for and like just elderly wisdom about the situation in a practical way. Because Cheryl kind of says like you begin to recognize that your sister wives have strengths that you don't have, and it gives our family strength. And what she's got that you don't have is an asset, not a liability. Like that seems like such a retro, like a retrospection kind of thing of like,
That's an emotionally removing yourself from the situation and looking at it
right.
rather than being like in the middle, feeling jealous, feeling normal human feelings.
And like, sorry, Grandma Cheryl, but easy for you to say now. Like, you're not in that phase of like kid raising and kid having and like kind of more romantic, that
Romance,
kind of
though.
stuff. Yeah, like it's like, yeah, now I bet it seems like it was great and worth it, but like, sounds like there was a lot of struggle.
Grandma Janelle says, like, she's like, think of each wife as like a spoke on a
Yep.
wheel, and that the more spokes in the wheel, the stronger the wheel is. And I was like, I'm gonna have to agree to disagree, Grandma Janelle. I'm sorry.
I know that metaphor was a little rocky for me as well.
Yeah, like I mean, if you think that and it works for you, I guess that's great. But you also did say how kind of miserable for a while you were when Grandma Cheryl joined the pictures. So me personally, that's not worth it. But
And
whatever.
also, the more spokes, the stronger. Like, so that's by that logic, we're saying every wife makes the family like the more wives, the stronger. Like, no, I mean, it's debatable if any additional wives make the family stronger. But if we're even following that thought process, certainly 5 or 6 do not. You know what I mean? Like,
It's the point of diminishing returns, though,
yes,
because
exactly. It's a bell curve for sure. If there is a bell curve, if we're
yeah,
assuming there's a bell curve.
you can only go up so far, and then once you reach a level, it is gonna just start declining. I'm sorry, it is like
It
you're
can't not. The time commitments that the husband in that equation has, the number of children and the resources for like it just can't. It can't not. Assuming where there is an upswing in this equation, I don't think that there is personally, but like that
assuming
benefit,
that there is.
that aside, it cannot keep going. It just can't.
Well, nothing can keep exponentially growing. Like
Yeah.
everything has a limit, and then
Yeah.
it starts to decline. Like that's just the way things are. So
Yep.
you can say that. It sounds like a really nice metaphor wrapped up in a bow, but realistically speaking, no.
That's a very like grandma like wisdom where they give you some kind of weird like saying that and they say it in a very well, you see, it's more like this, and the more you get I can just picture my grandma Joan is the best. My name's named after her. She's the coolest. She's awesome. But she has all kinds of sayings like that where I'm like, I'm sitting there listening, like, oh, okay, grandma. But then I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. In my head, like, I could think of a lot of arguments for that, grandma, but I'll let you impart
I
this
know,
one.
it's like you don't want to argue with your grandma
Yeah.
about it.
I feel like the next thing is the horse is cut back to, is that what you have to?
Yeah.
So there's a particular horse that seems to be acting up. The kids are all told, don't ride that horse. McKelty rides the horse and rides away on the horse, like just takes off. First of all, never, you have horses, so
Mm-hmm.
you're probably comfortable with a horse. McKelty's doesn't have horses. She's, as far as we know, never been to the ranch, or she doesn't go for the summers like the other boys do. Real
Yeah.
bold move to just swing up on a horse and take off on the horse that's like misbehaved. Like,
I mean, I'll say, like, I took years of riding lessons and stuff as a kid, and, like, I have my own horses and everything, and I would not just hop on any horse, like, and then just be like, let's gallop off into the sunset. Like, no.
yeah,
That's it's a lot, it's more than you think it is, like, to learn how to ride.
clearly. Yeah, well, learn how to ride like a well-trained horse is one thing, but like to decide to hop on the horse that is you've been told is not behaving or not well-trained or whatever the case was.
I mean, well, like, I think, this horse is, like, younger, this is, like, 5 years old, and he's, like, a green broke
Mm,
horse, which means, like, not very trained, and
sure.
I have a horse named Tyler, who
Okay.
is that's his name,
Interesting
who is
choice.
yeah, his name's Tyler, I didn't name him, that's his
Okay.
name. But, so, I mean, he's, like, 9, so he's a little bit older than this, but he has not had any saddle training. I could put a saddle on him, sure, and hop on. That would not be a great idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Good background. Good no I mean, I've ridden a horse or two, but like they've all been like at a camp that I attend where they're all very
super well trained then, like,
yeah, yeah, or like my cousin's horse that's like 1,000 years old and
yeah.
has been ridden forever. So interesting. Seems very McKelty though to that point. And then she gets basically bucked off the horse. It sounds like. Um, it seems scary. Kody talks about seeing her fly through the air, and she lands on her hip. Luckily, like that could. I feel like that's maybe the best spot you could have landed.
Yeah, at least she
If
didn't land on
not,
her head or neck or something,
or
like,
yeah, flat on her back or anything.
yeah.
And she's scared. I think not to be insensitive. My sense is that she's more scared than injured, like more like freaked out and like stunned than.
We learned later that, like, her hip did pop out of its socket, so I was like, "Oh, okay, that explains," because she has, like, a very, like, a big reaction to
Mhm.
like, she's in a lot of pain and stuff, but, like, for a while, I was like, "Alright, McKelty, you're kinda
I
milking
know.
it a little bit,"
The
I felt
limping
like such a
the
jerk.
limping and stuff, I was like, "Okay." But
Yeah, I
yeah,
was like, "Alright, we get it, like, it hurts." But no, I mean, I guess if your hip was popped out of its socket, I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm just an asshole and judging her too much here, like, judging
did
this
is it
teenager." Like,
did they specifically say that's what happened, or did they just say she
yeah.
was misaligned? Okay, I missed that then.
Yeah, 'cause so they took her then off to the chiropractor to take a look at it, and yeah, like, she came back and said, "My hip was popped out of its socket, he had to put it back
Oh.
in." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that explains a lot more." Because I was like, "Man, she is just being dramatic here." Like,
So I didn't catch the part where they said her hip was popped out, so that makes sense, but it's funny that they immediately my mind went to it's funny they immediately are like, "Go to the chiropractor," because like, that's not what my first reaction in the crisis and then, like, a serious potential injury would be, and I wrote, "Mormons love their chiropractors," because
I have
the
some
Laffertys work. Oh,
I
you
have
have
the
background?
same thing.
Oh, okay, that's funny.
I was like, "What is it with the chiropractors in this community?"
Yeah, and like rural Utah, I can't imagine there's a chiropractor around every corner, but apparently there was one they could get to pretty easily.
Right?
It was just fun. It was just funny. I'm like, that's I never in my first instinct would be like, let's go to the chiropractor. And then there's Maddie on the side. She's like, I knew she would. Didn't I tell you? I told you she would get on that horse. I want to say I told you so bad. And then she does, of course, later, probably multiple times. But we saw it on the confession couch. So basically, we're kind of wrapping up. They go out to the rock, the big rock to climb. And Robin sounds just like my mother. Like, so okay, be careful. Like, sit down, Brianna, Aurora. Like, just yelling, just like, sit down. Like, she's so nervous about this rock, and the other mom's like, meh, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they drive out. They're like, we want the kids to blow off some steam, and they drive out to this really big rock, and like it's kind of like a cliff side or something. I don't know, but they're all
Like a bluff almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all climbing this rock, and yeah, Robin's freaking the hell out. I mean, just worried that her kids are gonna fall down the rock, and all the rest of the moms are like, let them be kids. They gotta learn how
Hmm.
to like use their bodies and be athletic and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was my childhood. Like, I grew up playing in the woods and stuff. My sister and I, like, we'd be out there for hours unsupervised.
And they're just like shoulder shrug. Like in Janelle's parenting philosophy that she kind of articulates really well is so like she's ahead of her time. Gotta say, like I feel like now people are very much embracing that like free range parenting kind of thing, and after the upswing of like helicopter parenting, and now we're kind of swinging back to like this other kind of way.
Yeah,
And oh my gosh, she's kind of ahead of the curve because I feel like 2011 this wasn't the trend, but she says something along the lines of there's a certain amount of physical confidence that comes from pushing your limits and like kind of testing your limits and testing your strength and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It was very like very modern, Janelle. I think pretty much we cut back to the house being the paintings getting done. It actually looks
looks
pretty
great.
darn cute. Yeah, Janelle Christine gets her wish because Grandma cries. Grandma Janelle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a happy kind of ending. They got their job done and now they're back on the road for another week, basically.
Right. Now they have a week-long trip back one state over, but
So yeah, overall good fun
it was a fun
episode.
episode. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. I liked that we got some background. I liked that we were in a different setting. Yeah, I think it was very sweet.
Yeah,
Oh, also, I had a side note about how cute Savannah was when she was climbing the rock, and she goes, "Hi, mom!" Like up from the. She's just so darn. Just one of the.
so cute.
She's so cute. That's all. That was cutting back a little bit, but I had to say it because she just like it just made me smile watching it when she's like sitting on the rocks, like.
So sweet.
So yeah, um, I guess kind of next week we'll tune in for episode 3, which is titled "The Price of Polygamy," which makes it sound like it's going to be dramatic.
Well, I'm looking forward to that then. I didn't know the title of it, but now I'm literally looking forward to it.
I'm very much looking forward to it. So, thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Follow us on Instagram, on email us if you want, if you're old school like that. You can email us at podlygamispod.com. If you would be so kind as to review us on the Apple Podcast app or wherever you're getting your podcast, that would be phenomenal. And subscribe, follow, let us know. It's really fun to interact with you guys on the socials. So if you want to DM, I usually manage social media, so let's chat.